Hi, it's Matt Bubala here with another Fountain Report conversation. Today I'm joined by Adam Little. He is the president of Exponential Vet. Adam, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Absolutely. So, talk to us a little bit. You've been working with Fountain Report for a while. You did a lot of work with the enterprise practice database that we have,
Mhm.
but you've been looking into mega trends based on a survey sent out to Fountain Report readers. What are the trends as we jump into 2026? What are you looking at this year?
Yeah, so we sent a survey out, got some great responses from the subscriber base to really ask like what were things that people were top of mind for readers and how is that shaping how they're thinking about next year? And there was basically kind of three that rose to the top. One is this, pet owner economics, the cost of care story. I think the readers really reinforced that, this challenging environment where we're capable of doing more for pets than ever before, but increasingly looks like there are pet owners and pets that are being left out of that system. That's of concern. It's consistent with like the data that we've seen in terms of declining visits, and so that was something that I think for a lot of readers has started to hit home, and people are rightfully saying, what can we do about that? So that was a top one. The second was AI and technology. And this one was interesting in part because it was both a very popular topic, but one that people thought was overhyped, or they thought that they weren't seeing kind of enough benefit. And I think that's kind of a conversation that's happening across a lot of industries. So we can talk a little bit about where we went with that. And then the third was sort of workplace dynamics. And readers talked about everything from DVM production and salaries to well-being and burnout. And I think one of the things that was really interesting as we started to assemble this article is kind of the interconnectedness between those three topics. Will technology improve vets' lives to reduce burnout? How do pet owners think about their cost of care in a world in which there's more practice consolidation and production based pay for veterinarians, and what does that tension look like? And so I think that overall, the takeaway from that survey was that there is a lot on people's minds. There is this moment of tension that exists in the industry, I think, and now that's really beginning to manifest in the form of like decreasing visits. And I think people realizing we might need to do something a little bit different to meet this growing needs of pet owners.
Well, let's dig deeper into that. I know that there is a new report out available from for Fountain Report subscribers for half off
Yeah,
on the scribing services.
yeah,
And I wonder if soon it'll be not called a scribing services report because they do so much more than that. That's how all these companies started. But we know there are a
yeah,
lot of companies. It is a wide array of companies all battling
yeah,
to get into your everyday workflow. What's the
yeah.
status and where do you think things are headed?
Yeah, so we decided to focus on scribing for like a dedicated deep report for a couple reasons. One is it's the fastest growing technology, at least that I've ever seen in the veterinary industry. People at these companies probably estimate somewhere between like 15 and 25% of veterinarians are actively using or at least have tried one of these tools, which is insane if you think about it over the last couple of years. But at the other end of the spectrum, there's a lot of confusion as to where does this market go? Are these capabilities that are just going to become features in the existing PIMS experience and more all-in-one platforms? There's, I think, last count like 40 different companies that offer some different scribes. There's human health companies that are developing now for the veterinary market. And so what we wanted to do was provide a deeper analysis into the scribing kind of space, from a couple different dimensions. One was we looked really deeply at like search and visit traffic of their sites to get a sense of who's going there, how often they're going there, what's the growth between these different companies, and sort of extrapolate from there the momentum behind the different entities and the different categories. And we looked at this from kind of three different perspectives. The first cohort being veterinary dedicated scribe companies, of which there's lots. These kind of all-in-one systems that have now added scribing capabilities, and then human health companies that have indicated or are actively selling to veterinarians. So those were kind of the three categories that we looked at across their search and web traffic volume.
So based on what you're saying, is there a way to say outside of just the volume you're seeing of
Yeah,
searches, these
yeah,
companies are going to make it because of these things they're doing? Is there something we should be looking for, whether we're an investor looking to see which one of these
yeah.
do we put money behind, or a veterinary professional is like, we got to start using these things. Which way do we go? There's so many.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the results that we saw from this work were in that first kind of category. While there's a dozen plus of these veterinary specific companies, there's like less than five that probably truly matter in terms of like their growth. And those are the ones that today you're seeing move beyond just the dictation, right? So they're already adding phone support, they're adding client communication features, they're adding decision support, and so they are now at least from the data, I think actively separating themselves from this long tail of companies that maybe started with the Scribe, maybe got to a few dozen, few hundred practices, but I think over time are really going to struggle as this first kind of top tier of companies ends up acquiring more users, expanding functionality, and getting more funding. I think the other thing that's worth noting as part of this is the volume seems to suggest that there's enough of a dedicated category that's now been built around these companies that it's not going to be as simple as an all-in-one company kind of folding back into Scribe capability and like somehow cannibalizing the market. I think what we're seeing is that the signal of having a company that's solely focused on that particular area and building an experience really around that dictation capability is really quite different from somebody that's just sort of adding it on after the fact to like a desktop experience. And so when you look at the all-in-one traffic, yes, there is traffic to their sites, and these are kind of the pet owner engagement platforms that have added scribing or some of the PIMS companies. But that experience is one of that dictation feature is one of like 30 or 40 different features. So when you look at the traffic for those specific dictation or scribe features within those platforms, it just isn't necessarily as high as the dedicated ones. So I think it's more complicated to say, hey, this is just going to become a feature in all these existing legacy platforms and the scribe companies are going to go away. I think the traffic sort of suggests the opposite. I think the last part of this is from the human health standpoint, these companies have a lot of traffic, but the veterinary industry is a small piece of their experience. It's one of 10 maybe different healthcare fields that they now support. And I think you really get a sense when you look at the veterinary dedicated solutions, how different they are positioning their solutions, the veterinary specific features, what they're leading into, the depth of their integrations, the way that they position themselves in the market, how they frame the benefits in a way that I'm not sure that the human health companies are going to fully invest and understand what makes that veterinary space unique. I do think overall, all of this creates more competitive pressure. Ultimately, will improve the function, what's available to the end users. Probably lead to better pricing as well over time. But it isn't as simple as hey, there was a bunch of scrubs last year. Everyone's just going to build them into their PIMS. The scribe companies are going to go away, and that cost goes to zero. That's not really what we're seeing. And I think now that you have enough momentum from the market leaders that this is going to be a space that probably continues to grow significantly over the next few years.
Adam Little is the president of Exponential Vet. This subscript or this one-time report is available
Yeah.
right now to Fountain Report readers for a 50% discount. We'll have more
Yeah.
information about that, and we'll catch up with you again down the road. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great. And that perfectly, but I think it did the job. Let me
Cool.
pause.